floor is X, but it's not calculating the points. That'd be
Oh,
really good.
yeah. Let me show you what I came up with on that. I actually did go down the rabbit hole of looking at APIs for OpenSea, but it was a stretch too far for myself. I just couldn't get there. Let me show you what. You better to show this to you. Maybe you could just. I'm going to go navigate. I'm going to go OpenSea. I think I figured out how to do exactly what you said. I still don't like the way the information is displayed. Yeah, I'm kind of out with OpenSea. Yeah, I've only made HSI NFTs in the past, and I made one or two NFTs a couple of years ago. All right, Watsa, where are you, Watsa?
So crispy. There's as you know, there's some very exciting art going on that's going to be attached to the Watsas. And I'm lucky enough to have been one of the artists involved. Now I can't tell you anything more than that, but all I can tell you is it's very exciting. So here's a little proposal to do a page where the Watsas information can be accessed really quickly. Because today I registered watsas.com.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, huh?
So when what we should do is maybe wait until well, I'd have to get permission from Alex to preview, to show you the artwork that I'm working on. He might not allow that, but it would be nice to try and get it up before or in conjunction with him launching the interface. Now, it may be that he'll actually have all that data displayed in the new interface, which means that it's probably not worth doing. But if he's not doing it, it'd be really nice to have a little website just called Watsas devoted to that information so people can quickly access it.
Yeah, I'm with you. If of course, we have to leave it in his hands to say what he's interested in putting out or not put out. But yes, I'd be interested in helping with that, sure. And I think it's, as long as I can get the data, that's a small lift.
And I've got some absolutely mind-blowing artwork coming that's going to be attached to
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. Hey, just to answer your question, this was the best way, and you probably have looked at this before, but this is the best way that I found to quickly do that, because I'm using that whole idea of trying to figure out per million points how many dollars you're spending. And so when I went to the OpenSea and I went to activity and then listings, I did notice that regardless of the currency, the dollar values are listed underneath.
Right.
And so, I mean, some are quite ridiculous, but but nevertheless, the dollar values are listed there. So whether it's in Ethereum or not, or if it's in USD, it obviously makes better sense. So I found this to be useful to me in trying to understand what these values are.
Because remember, there's the dollar. The dollar value is the amount that's accrued. So, for instance, I know Mike. What's a god? Or what's a price advisor? I think he's changed his name. So he bought one for, I think he bought like a 3 billion one for 2000. Oh, I can't remember, but it had already accrued $900. But the thing is that when you go to OpenSea, you can't see how much they've accrued. And of course, ones that were registered on day one have accrued more than one for the same points, have accrued more than, say, one registered on day 10 or day 14.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So you have to know what the rate was for every day that this Watsa existed and be able to calculate that yield, right? Which isn't a problem if you're a Web3 developer, right? Somebody just has to develop that. That's what I keep running into is, I don't have that skill set yet. I haven't built it. So, yeah. So if you had a list of, if you could eat, now we can go get these lists, right? I mean, people have the ability. I mean, I have API access to some things. I can go pull data manually and go make a list, but that's very laborious, right?
Hamish keeps a daily record of the yield. So that would be, I mean, I'm not very good at maths, but there must be a way. If he's got the daily yield and you know the percentage of the pool, I suppose the only thing you don't know is you'd have to take into account the burnt Watsas, because then your yield increases. But Alex, I mean, I would have thought if we talk to Alex or you talk to Alex direct, you can get a feed from the actual site itself, because you in your interface you see how much Watsa you've got. Sorry, you see how much Icosa you've actually got. So that data is being fed into the app. So that data actually exists. So you're not looking at it on a specific day. You're just looking at it on the day, the day, today's date, whatever the day is. So for instance, if Alex has got that data, surely you would only need to multiply that data by the current price of Icosa.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we're so. Again, I'll just kind of say that I'm not a developer, so what I say may not be correct, right? But this is my understanding. Is that yes, if you connect up Web3 and you tell your app to go get that information, it can go get it. And obviously, Alex is very good at that and has been able to do that. So I think what it comes down to is priority, right? So he's got a whole list of things that he's working on, and it requires, some amount of work to make certain things show up. And so I would think, and I don't know, I haven't been talking to Alex, right? But from what he had said, I think there's a couple things going on. Is that the app is being updated, and I would think that some of that should be included, right? I would guess that he would include it there. And I know he also had spoken before about like some sort of a mega, um, statistics page where you would be able to look at hex, hedron, Icosa, Watsa data all in one dashboard. And he was at one point, and see, there's so much going on at one time, right, with trying to get ready for this burn. The priority's got to be to allow people to see what's out there, right, to be burned or purchased, I should say, during the auctions. That's got to be the priority. So I'm pretty sure he's really focused on that, and then anything that's necessary for us to be able to participate positively. But going all the way back to your question about how would we get this information, it's going to be one of two ways, I guess. One way, somebody's got to build some sort of a front end that's going to get you the information you want from Web3, because it also has to entail, being able to collect the address you want to go look at, because it's not your address, so it's not part of your wallet an app. And then the other way to do it is to produce and pre-stage data through something like like Subgraph, so that anybody who has a Subgraph account can go get that data, produce a data set, and then feed it to some other tool. That's what I'm doing with. That's how I get the data mostly for Hex, the Hexfire site. I do some minor API stuff. I'm doing some web scraping, but primarily what I'm doing is taking a data feed that's originally coming from Subgraph. So that I have because think of it this way, and maybe this is a good way to explain it. The only way I can do what I'm doing with Hexfire is that I can go get all 700,000 hex stakes and all the data at one time within about 10 minutes. But if you've used, whether it's the Icosa app or Hex, hex.com, your staking panel there, or any other tool that's out there, you'll notice that when you want to go get live data, it can take some time, to pull the data and refresh it.
A lot of the technical stuff is way beyond me. I'm just a graphics and a designer, so all that stuff goes above my head.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if that's true. I mean, you're just like the rest of us, at least at some base level. I mean, we just want to get the data. I mean, I have the same desire you do, and I know there's somebody who does have that. If you go to your example, there is probably somebody who has the access to quickly pull all this data, and it's just not public knowledge.
Yeah, so in the field on the app where your Icosa displays, Alex must have a data feed that goes directly into that field. So with Alex's permission, and that's associated with the token ID name for each WhatsApp that shows up in your app. With Alex's permission, you could simply just take that feed and, as I said, multiply it by the dollar amount of Icosa on the day. But that information isn't publicly displayed because, of course, that's when you look at your own WhatsApps. Just on a little creative level as well. I know you always love sparring with Matty regarding WhatsApps. What about, and again, I think we'd need Alex's permission. What about, do you have any WhatsApps?
Yeah, I do. I paid
Do
it.
you have
paid
like
attention.
do you have like a low one that you might want to sell first in part of your ladder? Because here's my idea. What about if we create a special DeLorean one-off WhatsApp, and then I could attach with Alex's permission, we can attach it to one of your WhatsApps, and then you can tease Matty and say there's only out of 22,000 WhatsApps, there's only one DeLorean WhatsApp, and see whether we can actually turn him and get him to invest in a WhatsApp, special DeLorean WhatsApp. Anyway, just a fun idea.
I think it'd be fun to do.
Generated by AI, as you know. So it look like free. As soon as you start using someone's product, if, say, DeLorean said, we don't want our DeLorean car, they could obviously approach OpenSea and then jeopardize the whole project on OpenSea. So on a copyright issue, we'd have to talk to Alex. I don't know what the copyright issue is regarding something like a DeLorean car. But I just thought it'd be a fun thing to do if Alex, yeah. I mean, we could do a kind of fantasy DeLorean that is sort of Icosa, has some Icosa elements in it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the copyright laws involved with that either. Probably could do a search and see.
What I might do is I might the artwork's generated by putting in keywords, as you may know. So if I put in the word DeLorean car, Icosa shaped, it might generate a fun image. I haven't tried it, or even maybe even sports car with winged doors. I'll try it out and I'll get back to you.
And so apparently there are public domain DeLorean pictures. So I don't know how you validate that, but oh, never mind. Maybe not. I see some that you can buy.
What I might do is to get around it, I might just type in something like sports car, futuristic sports car with winged doors, and just see what the AI creates. Do you know what color his DeLorean is? Is it silver? I think the original.
I'm not sure. Were they ever any other color?
I don't
I,
think so.
I suppose somebody could have painted one. I don't know why they would have, but one of side discussion, not part of that discussion, but one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot has been, and Randy Hilarski's talked about this a lot too, is utilizing HSIs to hold the equivalent of liquid hex, and rather than keeping it liquid, with the idea that when you want to sell, presumably, right, you're going to sell eventually sometime at some point. But then when you went to go sell it, you basically took that and encapsulated it as a stake and sold it back to the Icosa contract to sell Icosa. I mean, that's one of the use cases that people have touted, and that works. It's not the best price that you would get for an encapsulated stake because it doesn't reward you for um, for any yield. However, if the price tracked to the ceiling Icosa price as it has been, you would get the value for whatever the hex was worth, right? We're pretty close anyways, within a couple percent. And then as a hex maxi kind of thought, um, that's good for hex, right? The more that gets loaded into Quattrocincos and locked up, the less that's on the market. Trying to poke holes in that idea to see is that something we can do, or is that a viable strategy?
Are you talking about a second contract which would convert automatically your Icosa to
Let me
hex off the
let me go back.
like
Utilizing the current
like
contracts that are there. So let's say I'm not in Hadron at all. I've just ignored it, and I happen to have a lot of hex that I want to sell. And is there a positive use case that says, hey buddy, don't sell the hex, encapsulate it, make it HSI, encapsulate it, sell it back for Icosa, sell the Icosa. Is that a valid approach? Is that a valid thing to do?
I think that's been talked a lot in this group, that going forward, it takes some of the sell pressure off Hex, certainly. But you'd have to do it on the day. You'd have to calculate. Are you saying that it would be useful that, or you could produce a page which would do the calculation roughly for you? Because of course, when you actually do the sale, you don't know where the market's going to move in the next few minutes.
Without the idea of creating any type of tool, just the concept itself. Yes, the market could move against you, couldn't it? Someone could try to front run you, particularly if it's a large amount. You could hurt yourself.
Yeah, but that's why I was
also
saying, if you had a third smart contract that basically does the swap for you, like a sort of swap function and a sell function, and then puts the dollar amount into your, or whatever you want to convert it to. So basically, it's a swap via the contract at any given point. So if you had a little kind of app a little bit like the Uniswap app front end, where you could see the two, which one was the most beneficial to you in terms of whatever you were swapping to.
but that might be working on stuff like that. But yeah, you went after it pretty hard there, DJ. Right? Go right for the tool. I was just thinking manually. Is there a case? Here's my thought: is, I mean, you could get a lot more adoption of the idea if we can make the case to Maxis that it is price positive for Hex.
Executioner has talked about at length and trying to drum into everyone in chat that not to sell Hex on the open market, but to use the HSIs to make sure that you're not pushing the price against you. But he also obviously talks extensively about doing it through providing liquidity just above the current price again, so you don't push the price against you. You get just above the market price. You let the market buy into you.
Yep, I've heard him speak about it.
Are you?
Yeah, I by no means was I suggesting I came up with the idea. I've been listening to this from different people, and I know that he's spoken about that within this community. I think I've even heard him on Stream talk about it. If it was him.
Your idea does create a good idea, as I said, creative idea for an button. So you see, oh, if I swap going via Icosa, this is what I get, and if I swap going via Uniswap, this is what I get. And then using that app, they'll see they'll see the benefits of Icosa, because not, like you say, not all the maxis totally understand the tokenomics and the benefits that Icosa and Hedron are bringing to the ecosystem.
Are you guys talking about relieving the sell pressure off Hex?
Yeah, and then taking it one step forward and having like a price comparison app that allows you to swap via the Icosa contract. And it gives you two prices, one via the Icosa contract and one selling via the open market on Uniswap.
Okay, so the idea would be if a stake comes out, the person, instead of him selling the entire 100% of his hex on the open market uh, between hex and USDC, if we could just like get people to slowly think about maybe instead of selling 100%, maybe attempt to make a stake with 10% of it as an HSI and send it to the Icosa contract, get Icosa, and then dump that Icosa on the market for USDC. And then instead of him dumping 100% of his hex, he just dumps 90% of his hex. That's a good start, you know. And then over time, as Icosa grows and there's more liquidity in the pools, then people can, instead of only dumping 10%, they can increase that, and then eventually we're going to get to like when a stake comes out, 50% of it is going to get staked for 15 years, and then they're going to sell it for the Icosa and then take their profits through Icosa, and then 50% of it will just be sold normally as they wish. And then over time it's going to grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually people will not sell hex anymore at all.
What he was saying was the maxis who really don't understand the mechanics, how to get them to adopt buying or selling their hex to the contract rather than just selling on the market. So not necessarily, this is just for people, have I got you right, Crispy? Just people with liquid hex, whether they've got the stake come to an end or they're just holding liquid hex in their wallet.
Yeah, correct. I think both strains of this conversation apply. I think, yeah, that's what we're talking about. And I was thinking kind of all in-ish, not 10%ish, but yeah, I mean that approach works too. But I mean, you know, if you can get hundreds of people to start doing it rather than selling, that would seem to be very positive.
Yes. So the reason why I said 10% is because in the very beginning, there's not a lot of liquidity and it can't support a lot of sellers right now. But if people just start slowly, and just the 10% is like a good beginning, and eventually people can start selling more and more through Icosa, and then having the sell pressure within Icosa instead of Hex. That's a net positive. So I think the selling point is that it's a net positive for Hex.
Remember, if people dump straight into Icosa, there's the arbitrage where it bounces back. So if you introduced this, if you did something like a price comparison, but if you built in the function of something like cow swap, where it's almost like somebody will, they could set a limit order on how much they're prepared to pay for Icosa under the current arbitrage price. So let's say you set 10%, or the buyer sets 10% or 5%. People will outbid each other on the arbitrage. And like on CowSwap, if you had sort of buyers and sellers being matched in the background, then again you're not moving the price against you. How you do that technically, yeah, I mean that's sort of quite deep dev work, sort of creating a sort of a cow swap with a price comparison that shows you the two different routes.
So the ideal situation is like over the entire future, every single time people have their stakes ending, they have to understand that there is another possibility of not just dumping the hex on the market, but actually staking it 15 years, and then still getting liquid rewards from it in similar quantity.
Yep, and you bring up a perfectly great point, which is you have to have the liquidity, I guess, out there, so the price doesn't get moved against you. But I guess you'd use that same technique, right, of selling at, doing a limit at just above, or providing LP at just above the current price. Maybe that would be the way to provide a solution.
Yeah, I think currently, for people who want to sell smart and still uphold the stability and the progression of the hex price to just continuously move upward, when your stakes come due and you want to sell, it's probably good to use a combination of like using liquidity and using the Icosa contract, maybe in combination. But over time, the most logical thing is that once your stakes come due, you restake them again. Once Icosa is strong enough with time to be able to handle the amounts of cells that come in. Obviously, you're going to have massive players who have enormous amounts of hex that come due, and they're probably not going to be able to do it with as much success as smaller players. But logically, this is where we're headed. Like in the future, everybody will just take their interest from their hex and use the Icosa contract in order to get out more liquidity instead of just dumping the hex price.
Yep, understood. I mean, I personally have taken that step. This is historically at the bottom is not the right time to sell. Just in case anybody was wondering, right? I mean, that's even though emotions run high, and people do it. So now is not a great time to sell. So I have had some small stakes come out, and what I've done with those stakes is I've started converting those into HSIs when they come up, specifically for that purpose with that idea.
It sounds really good because this was the entire point of one of the points of why Icosa also was created, and it's net positive for Hex.
Yeah. And I would be, if someone wanted to make it black and white, they'd say that I'm a hex maxi, which is fine. I'm okay with that label if it has to be a label. But obviously, these derivatives all affect us, right? So I do get Hadron, right? Because I have my stakes and I get the Hadron, right? And I'm not silly, so I'm not gonna throw that away in spite of whatever feelings I have one way or another about maximalism, right? It's just silly. And anyways, I've always been very open about my approach. I always work towards getting more T-shares or more hex stake. That's been my approach. But there is a little bit of a barrier, right? Some of it's just knowledge. Some people just don't know. I mean, there's still people that don't know about Hadron, don't know about Icosa at all, right? So you have that barrier. And then you have the ones who do know, and once they do know, the second barrier is to actually break through and use the protocols, right? And it creates conflicting feelings for people. If you're already here, it's likely you've gotten past that if you had that at all. So then the question is, how do we, does it make sense to bring other people along with us into this? I mean, I think the answer is yes, but I can understand why some people would say no.
I mean, it's like you have a car, right? And somebody along the line comes out and makes some improvements that you can just add on to the car and it doesn't do any harm. So this is basically what this is. Why would you not add it? It's like it's literally just free utility, But I understand your point. But just wait, because we're right now we're like in a dead zone. But once the market starts going up, you're going to see an influx of people old people that are not old age-wise, but the people who used to be here and they're gone now, they will come back, and there's going to be an influx of new people that will come. And the people who didn't buy Hex at 3 cents, they're going to buy at 7 cents. The ones that didn't buy at 7 cents, they're going to buy at 20 cents, and so on and so on. We're going to go. The same model is going to continue all the way up to like over $1. And once those people are introduced to the ecosystem, they're going to come into these chats and they're going to ask, what is this? What is that? What is this? What is that? And slowly over time, people are going to get more and more familiar with it. But earlier we had a conversation where we accepted the fact that you can't just like, you can't come in here and listen to executioner talk and then just instantly understand everything, because there's so many steps skipped that you need to both go into the chat, exclamation point pasta. You need to read. You need to watch videos from all the influencers that have made videos about Icosa and Hedron system and Hex, and then you have to also listen to executioner. And then when there's a combination of these three things, things have a easier way to be understood, because this is complex, you know.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm clued in what's going on, and I still have to think really hard about stuff. So I totally get that. Yeah.
But yeah, the most important thing is that every green market brings an entire wave of new people with it. And these are the people who will get introduced to these things. We're right now in the very beginning, like the basics and the infrastructure is being built around these things. But once it's completely completed, and then you have this wave of people come in, everything will already be ready for them. And the only thing left is just to understand how these things work. And by that time, we're probably all going to be well versed to understand and explain it, you know, to anybody that comes in. Hex is looking good. I also see a little green candle on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I noticed the price had bumped up. It's funny, you know, this has nothing specific to do with our, you know, our chosen tokens here, but it is funny to me that I lived that life of being the guy who wouldn't buy when things were low, but bought when it was high. It's one of the most baffling things about human nature.
Yeah, it's an interesting, almost a phenomenon.
Yeah, it's real. That's for sure. And the only way that I've been able to beat that has been one by learning, getting as much knowledge as possible, and then two by practicing the action, you know, practicing the hold, practicing, you know, the taking of profits at higher values, practicing, you know, and for me personally, because I like numbers, right? I'll get into opportunity costs, you know. So I'll actually look at what I'm giving up versus what I'm doing. Because there is such a thing as holding, well, I guess in crypto it remains to be seen whether there's such a thing as holding too long. But certainly on mid and short term holds, there is that possibility, right? Of holding too long and putting yourself into a position where you have to experience another giant dip.
Yeah, I feel like people just need to understand that you have to buy in the bear and sell in the bull, not in reverse. Like you buy in the bear, and then when the bull comes, since you can't predict which highs it's going to go to, you just look at it and then you sell on big green candles, just small portions. This is how you would make money.
Well, Kismet, I agree with you, but of course, if everybody did have green candles, right?
No, I know when I
Right, and you get done reading it, and you're like, well, shit. If everybody does this, then there's no way for you to no way for you to win. Right? But the thing is that everybody won't do it. Right, so we know that they won't do it. So that means we are going to have green candles, right? Because unfortunately, people come find these new things when they're going up and they want to hitch a ride up to the top. Unfortunately, the top may already be in, right? Yeah, like you said, very interesting. I'm not endorsing people going in and spending money on these forks, but one of the things I've been looking at is exactly what's happening over there. And I know that ETH Fair, for instance, is at risk, right? I mean, nobody knows what will happen with the chain long term, but the Icosa price there is way off. Now, there's also not very much liquidity. But compared to the ceiling price, it's way off. But ETHW is tracking fairly close. I mean, the ceiling is 2 zeros and a 9, and the price on ETHW is 2 zeros and an 8. So I mean, it's.
Are you sure
too
you're
far
getting
off.
in all the right data on that, Crispy? Because I was actually just looking at that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm using Dex, and it might be, and it does change minute to minute. 'cause it's
Oh
very
yeah,
volatile.
so yeah, the liquidity on Fair, especially for Icosa, is extremely thin. So what you end up having to do is you end up having to, well, I've got spreadsheets for it, but I plug in all the data into the spreadsheet. So for right now, like if you took like a 70,000 hex, staked it 15 years, Quadracinco with their share rate right now of 24,383. That'll give you like 2,200 and some mintable Icosa. And then you compare that to the current price of Icosa, and the arbitration difference is only about 13 cents on an $18.61 stake. So it's pretty close. There's like a little bit of arbitrage that you could do to bring that Icosa price back down. But yeah, if you're just looking at the DEX, it really throws you off because there's practically zero liquidity for Icosa on there.
Well, what do you see for a ceiling price on Fair right now for Icosa?
On Fair, the ceiling price is 0.0082.
Okay. Yeah, I have it pretty close at 0.0079.
We're probably using the same math there. And then I haven't checked it in probably an hour, but the Icosa price on there should be 0.008264. So there's like I was saying, there's just a little bit of arbitration difference there.
Now, where are you pulling that price from? Which pair?
So I'm pulling the Icosa price from the Icosa hex pair. Let me double check.
Yeah, I might be pulling the Weath pair.
So I use the hex Icosa pair because that one at just the $1,800 in liquidity, I think is the highest. So it just gives me better candles. You know what I mean? So I'm pulling it from there from Dex Screener is the pair I'm using on there. And then you just pull up the pair and then, you know this, but invert the pair.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is, and I figured out how to automate it. I think, but I'm probably going after the wrong one compared to you. And I think the little snippet, and it's not heavy code. I think the little snippet that I'm using for getting the data, you can drop right in Excel as well. So you might be able to automate those pairs into your Excel sheet. Let me go see which one I'm using. I'll tell you exactly which one I'm using. I think I remembered correctly. I think I used the Weath. Let's see. ETH Fair, Icosa. Let me grab my link. Oh, maybe I'm grabbing the wrong price. So I used Hex Icosa with 1.8 in liquidity. And so perhaps I'm reading the wrong price, like you said about inverting.
Right. Yeah, you got to invert that price. Otherwise, it's just reading you the hex price.
I wonder if I can get the data a little bit differently. Switch to price in Icosa. So they don't use a different link when you pull it up. So when I'm trying to scrape the screen, I'm going for the price that I can find in USD.
Yeah, I could see how that could either be a pain in the butt or just trip you up a little bit.
Yeah, so I see what you're saying. So you're showing the price as 0.03 for Icosa.
If you don't invert the pair. So, I mean, that's just giving you, okay. So if you're on Dex Screener, if you're just on the website and, here, let me re-invert this. So you're looking at, you pull up the Hex Icosa pair, and then the US, so the price in Icosa is 0.03, but that's the price in Icosa. That's not the dollar value, right?
And so which dollar value are you showing?
So then the dollar value is just showing the hex price, which is 0.000. So 3 zeros, 2510.
All right, but is that in hex or in dollars?
that should be in dollars. This is price USD right above it.
So I guess that's where I was coming from so that's the number that I'm pulling when I show the dollar value of Icosa as
Oh.
0.000251.
Oh yeah, that's where it's pulling off. So when as it shows that the 302510 in the price USD of it's talking about hex in that price, then the three dots in the upper right hand corner right by the Ethereum fair Uniswap reference.
Yeah.
Show calculator, invert pair, go ahead and invert that. Now you're looking at the opposite. So you're looking at the price of Icosa versus hex. So now it shows, it takes 32.92 hex for every Icosa, which is right around the ratio of the current ceiling. But like some people look at ratios, I look at the ultimate price, and I have a lot of good reasons why I do that. But when I look at the ultimate price, then that now changes to 0.008264. Which was that Icosa price I was pulling earlier. It looks like it's still the same price.
Got it. I need to update this in some way. I might have to calculate it if I can't get it directly in the data.
I've literally had to quadruple all my spreadsheets to account for all the other networks, including the test net. It's just a ton of Excel work, my man. That's crazy.
Well, have you used data before? I mean, as far as pulling data into your Excel sheets?
No, not directly. No.
So what you could try is, I don't know that it'll work for you. I'm gonna have to look and see what I can dig into this a little bit further. What you could try is you do a new data source, or add data, and you're able to put the URL in for the DEX. Now, what I found worked most recently for me well was putting in putting in the URL for the DEX that I wanted to, and having it download the data as CSV data, which is the fancy way of saying it comes down as text, right? That I can then read and kind of go through. So I'm going to go drill into that a little bit further. But I think what I might want to do is to take that hex price and figure out what the value is of Icosa based on that. There's got to be a calculation that I could use for this.
For trying to calculate what again?
I need to do that inversion, and because I'm not using Web3 to automate it, and I'm doing web scraping, I have to figure out how to get to the right page to get the right data.
Yeah. What kind of knowledge do you have on, like, have you done any official training on JavaScript or HTML5?
I have not gone back to school to do that. No.
What tool do you like to use when you build your website? You're basically using Microsoft, right?
Yeah, it's out of convenience. So I'm within this Power BI tool, which is basically think Power Query for Excel. And so anyways, I'm learning, within that sphere, besides the object oriented stuff that goes on, it's a language called DAX. And they also use a layer below that is something called mQuery. And I am pretty good with SQL, well, a couple different versions of that. But beyond that, I've gotten into a little bit of JavaScript, but I just haven't jumped in, to start doing scripting, which
Would
probably
that be?
would solve a whole bunch of my problems, probably.
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna ask. Like, if you knew JavaScript pretty well, would your site like just look completely different, or would it just be like an extra tool you would use?
I think it would change things a little bit, with how I present data and what I do with the site. I really went with easy and free. I mean, it's not free to me, but as far as getting the data, I went the least path of resistance to get data, and get it presented, um, with the least amount of maintenance as possible. That can also be automated, right? That's kind of like the rules I went after.
Well, everything on your site is automated, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. At this point, well, I got a couple little tiny pieces, like I haven't figured out how to pull share rates, which I could do if I went with an API. I mean, I can pull it for the ETH chain, but like as an example, there isn't a data set or or somebody's front end that supplies share rates that I can access easily yet, for ETHW or ETHFair. So that would be an example of something a little bit more manual. But any data that I have that I can get from the internet, I've got that all programmed up now to automatically refresh.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll be diving into that pretty deep here over the next month. So you might be hearing my annoying voice with you a little bit here and there. I just got my certificate in Python, and I'll be jumping on the JavaScript chain next. So I'll be 4 or 5 hours a day on JavaScript trying to learn that. And I know nothing about it right now, but it looks like that's the path I should probably take next.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. I mean, it's easy enough to do. If you've got Python down, I mean, I I think I've scripted once in Python, and so many of these languages are so very similar. Like I can program with VBA pretty easily. Um, Visual Basic. I mean, and it's not a hard stretch. And I've done C plus or C sharp, or C plus plus. I mean, it's just how, would I call myself an expert in any of that? No, no. I'm not an expert, but I can read the internet, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. No, I mean, for me, this is just the best time to just be sharpening skills, because you know how it is once the market comes back and everything gets crazy. I mean, you won't have the attention span to like add to your arsenal of what you can do. So I'm just trying to get that all crammed in as soon as possible while we got time.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. I I kind of, because I have some programming experience, and I've never been quote unquote a programmer in the last 10 years. Maybe I would have said that 20 years ago. Um, I really danced around with Solidity with the idea, should I go learn? But I was like, at the time, I didn't have the forethought to know that would be so much more happening. There's so many people involved in doing it already. It just didn't seem like it made sense for me to jump in, you know? Um, so I put it off, but yeah, that would have been the time couple of 2 years ago to really dig in and learn about this. But yeah, I mean, you're heading in the right direction. I think you'll learn a lot and be able to do a lot. I suppose one of these days I could do it.
Yeah, ultimately, I'd like to just get another front end built for Icosa because I like the idea of redundancy. There's certain people who would say it's not important, but I think it is important to at least have one redundant front end for every valuable front end that we have in the ecosystem. Like Icosa doubles as a front end for Hex, and there's also backup Hex as a front end as well that you could always use. So Hex is covered, but Icosa currently there's only the one front end, managed by Alex. So I'm hoping that eventually I could just build something basic as a backup for them, and maybe it'll be something that we could pull data from. You know what I mean? That would be easy for you to incorporate with your website.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd appreciate that if we could do it. But for my own personal goals, right? I'm not. What am I doing? I guess what I'm doing is just sharing information. So I got to be careful because sometimes I'm wrong. I got to be careful about that. I got to make sure I get the right information. But I'm just sharing information and whatnot. Like I probably have a little bit of ego into what I'm doing with my site. But I mean, if something antiquated it overnight, I'd be okay with that too. It's really just about participating in the overall in our network of communities for me, and getting information out there, and then ultimately why do I want information out there? I find that information pretty interesting. Um, and if some way that allows me to make better decisions, allows other people to make better decisions, that's great. I mean, for the longest time, we all pretty much said, hey, like for instance, you can't figure out what's going to happen with the share rates. Well, you can. I think that's probably the best alpha that I've been able to generate because, particularly now, because it's used so much here within Hadron and Icosa. There are decisions you can take and make, that can help you, and I think that's what it's about is helping people get a little bit further ahead.
Oh yeah, like I will shout you out every chance I get. When you started creating that, and I mean, based on the data and anticipated that spike. I mean, you've heard me tell you before how cool that was, because you know what it did is it bridged that gap. Early on, the only site we really had in the Hex community was the Hex.vision, right? And in there, it was super sweet because you could see when these big stakes were coming out, right? But you didn't really know how that would affect the T-share directly. And then what you're pulling is you can see directly how it could affect the T-share based on what the OA wallet, these big whale wallets end up doing. After if they end up end staking or if they you've got the little chart there on what it might or might not do. And I thought you bridging the gap there, that was pretty sweet. Is that something you thought about? Like, did you used to go to Hex.vision?
Oh yeah, I still use it today. Yeah. I mean, because there's certain things that you might want to see a certain way, but yeah, and when I think that here's the thing is all these tools that we have, and you'll experience it yourself, right? It gets what you put out gets prioritized based on the needs at the time, and to a certain extent, maybe before there wasn't like a real big need to know what the T-share rate was going to be in advance, right? Um, Based on that narrative at that time, right? But now we're moving into different territory, and I found a need for myself to want to know. So we went after it. I went after it and got it. But I'll tell you this, and no conspiracy thoughts, but I can't be the smartest guy in the world, right? So somebody else has already done this. It's just not public. I mean, I would assume that it's already done. So yeah, that's another reason why I like sharing the information out.
Yeah, I don't even think you'd have to go so far as call it a conspiracy that people have a lot of data they have in the background that's just not public that they're not sharing. I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious in particular, like just the arbitraging of the Icosa stakes, like right after Icosa launched, right? Not the Icosa stakes, but selling those HSIs, selling it for Icosa and reselling that for more hex, right? That arbitrage opportunity. I mean, that was executed at a level that was quite precise. I was watching that from the moment Icosa launched and for, till today, really. I watch it every day. And that arbitrage was being executed at a level that that there was multiple people involved to try to, withdraw as much value as they could from the market while that opportunity was still there. So, leading up into the launch of Icosa, it didn't really feel like a lot of the community really had their heads wrapped around that arbitration point. So it's like, okay, well, not a lot of people are looking at this, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. And then for somebody like me to have like practically zero opportunity to take advantage of that arbitrage just tells you there's a lot of people that aren't talking that have a lot of this data that they're just keeping to themselves, right? So
Yep.
I think we have instances of this actually taking place, and I don't think it's much of a conspiracy theory at all, personally.
Yeah. And listen, those guys are, they can do whatever they want to do too, right? So I mean, it's not anything negative,
Absolutely. I mean, this is the open market, right? There's nobody in charge, right? There's no rules or limits that we all have to abide by. This is, freedom in action. How we choose to interact with the contract it is what it is, right? The code in these contracts is law. That's it. Anything you can do, and there's not any real morality involved in that. So yeah, if whoever's, if there's a bunch of people that are pulling their resources in the background that are taking advantage of certain situations, I mean, that is how you put in work to get extra profit, right? Like they're putting in the work. They're not draining it from somebody else. They're putting in the work, and anybody else can do the exact same thing.
Yep, that's my thought exactly.
But you and I think what we do agree on is, just kind of giving back to the community in a way that we can help out, the people we can, right? With whatever skill set that we got, that, by your website or by me, building something for the future, or just, going on YouTube streams and trying to educate as best as I can where I can. That's just our method of the next man up, right? Because early on we were listening to a lot of people who knew a lot more than us and learning about the ecosystem. So we withdrew value there, right? When we were learning early on, and now this is kind of like our time to give back, and we're the next man up. We're going to help the next line of people that are coming behind us. We're going to show them what we're working on, and we're going to give them some easy tools, some tools that they can use to better their decision making. And that's just how we roll forward in the hopes that when we become obsolete, the people that were behind us, they're going to build stuff for us to use that we're going to appreciate, right?
Yep, that's a good way to look at it, I think.
So right now I'm building some spreadsheets. So I'm going on RH Max's stream today with Bluey, and we're going to be talking about the auction that's coming up, and I'm going to be sharing some of my spreadsheets on how we can calculate fair value of the size hitting the market. While I got you, is there anything in particular that you're curious about, or something that you want us to cover? Anything like that you can think of off the top of your head?
No, I think probably that I'm actually going to be on with him tomorrow, I think. But I'm interested. I think what I am interested in is what people's thoughts are on these forks. I think that's one of the things. It sounds like you're going to cover some of that.
Just make sure you give Crispy a really good plug on the show.
Say that again. Sorry, DJ.
I said, just make sure you give Crispy a really good plug on the show for Hellfire.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if you ever watch me, DJ, but anytime it comes up, man, I shout him out. I shout him out on Twitter too. But that's cool. He's going on RH Max tomorrow. That'll get a lot of eyeballs. That's for sure. But I've already thought of ways I can basically reference hexfire.io with some of these spreadsheets. So it'll be in there. I'll mix that in for sure, DJ.
No, it's appreciated. Not required, but appreciated. I'll definitely watch today for sure. Yeah, I will try to reciprocate as well.
Well, here's the thought. It was a few days ago, and it got recorded and got put on YouTube. But I had jumped on late, but started talking to Big K. I'm sure you remember Big K in the Hex community.
Oh yeah, I met him one time.
Very cool. Right.
That's my claim to fame. One time I met him, shook his hand, and everybody said, "Hey, this is Big K," and I was like, "Okay." I didn't know at the time. Now I know.
Is he really a big guy? He seems like a big guy.
Bigger than life for sure.
Well, yeah, no. I was talking to him because my thing is if I can get any of these guys, if I can get their attention for a little bit, I will just pick their brain as much as I can. Like I feel a little need to try to educate them on what I know. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to learn from these guys. So I started picking his brain heavy on mining, right? And then we kind of transitioned over into 51% attacks. And then we kind of talked about the other chains. So I was curious, did you listen to that or did you hear that conversation?
No, I didn't see that. Where was that?
It was in this room. He actually jumped in this room and he was hitting me up because I'm an admin in Icosa and Hedron. He was hitting me up because he got blocked somehow. So once I made sure he got unblocked in Hedron, then I saw he jumped in the Icosa chat. So I was like, oh, shoot, I got to jump in here and try to pick his brain a little bit. But I think it was Death Thought there. I think he's in the room right now, probably recording this. I think he posted that up on YouTube. It was either him or the Crypto Gem guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go look and see because I just subscribed to the channel. I think I was number 51.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I got big hopes and dreams for Death Thought. I think he's gonna have a good channel going forward as long as he sticks to it. But yeah, long story short, he talked a little bit about how, because he's got this extensive mining background with mining Bitcoin and Ethereum, um, proof of work stuff. Uh, I thought he was a great person to talk to about the 51% attacks, and that being primarily the biggest risk is if they get attacked, how much it then becomes it becomes a kind of a narrative of the chain, right? Like if it gets attacked over and over again, then people will not want to adopt the chain more so than like your funds are at risk, right? So it becomes like this narrative. So if that actually happens, it's not so much that the 51% attack is just going to wipe out everybody's wallets. What's going to happen is that there's going to be the faith will be lost in those chains. And so the lower the hash rate, the easier it is for somebody to go in and rent some hash rate from what is it, eHash or whatever those websites are that you can pay to rent out hash rate. If they get attacked, that could happen. But at the same point in time, it's like the network has to grow to a value where it's worth attacking. Because if somebody were to come in and attack that chain, it would only be worth it if they can withdraw more money than what it costs them to rent out the hash, right? So like the attack has to be worth less than your profit. So he put out some pretty interesting ideas on like what could happen, what it would look like. Like you could look at a 51% attack on the chain. It would look weird because it would be like there might be a side chain, a dominant side chain that you can't even see, where they're just reorging the transactions to suit their profit, right? To kind of funnel into their profits. But like, how would you be able to do this dark network attack without everyone noticing the hash rates moving over to that one kind of block or that one blockchain, right? So there's a lot of checks and balances that everyone can kind of keep their eyes on to see if the chain is vulnerable or not. And the interesting part is, since the value of the chains have been going down since launch, I think there's more and more less likely of a chance of any sort of attack to take place, and more likely than not, the biggest risk is just the adoption of those chains. Like if people refuse to adopt those chains, then there's not going to be a whole lot of value to be had there, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there's some of that for sure, right? I mean, there's got to be a gain. It has to be a reason to do it, right? And so if it's not financial, what is it, right?
The one bullish case you could kind of pull from it all is that, when we see the bull market return again, whenever that is, we will probably be seeing high fees again in the Ethereum blockchain. So if you've got super high fees in the Ethereum blockchain and people still want to get in on Hex or Hedron or Icosa, one alternative would be to just work it on one of these side chains, right? Now you can get in, you can get the tokens, it's the same code. You're just working on a chain that's valued less. So you can buy more of the tokens, and then, you can stake them, you can use all the protocols, everything will be working. And so maybe that will draw an adoption. And until we see the fees get ridiculous again on Ethereum, maybe we'll continue to see the bleed out of value on these other two chains. Maybe there's a correlation there.
Yeah. Well, the first rule, whether it's the right rule or not, that people apply is liquidate, right? So a lot of people have dumped everything they can to pull whatever value they can out. And so there's a question. The question is whether that bleeding will ever stop, right?
It can get to a point where you're basically just giving away your tokens when it gets so cheap that like you're selling several billion Hedron for like $1.50. It's like you basically just gave it away. So there's a theoretical floor there where it's just, people just get like, it won't be worth their time to go switch over to the network to just perpetually dump when like their time's worth more than $1.50 an hour, right? So there's that, and then again, you just got to wait until this bull market turns around and the fees get ridiculous. I mean, who knows how much of an impact Zen's going to have on those fees as well. And then you may see a situation where people may start to use these other chains, but one or the other has to kickstart it.
Mm-hmm. My strategy there has just been to accumulate my yield. That's it. On those two, just to see what happens,
So, Crispy, what's your thoughts on Poly?
I haven't thought a whole lot about it yet. I like the Maximus guys, so I probably would lean towards participating. I mean, how about you?
Well, it's bringing up some very controversial opinions, I think, and it's making this statement, maybe not intentionally, but it's making this statement where it's telling people that it's okay to accept a little bit of counterparty risk in the hopes that you will generate more of a profit than if you would run the contract code without the counterparty risk.
Mm. Yeah, I could see that. This is Polly.
Okay.